Hey, howdy, and welcome all to the Big and Bright podcast. My name is Nick. This here next to me is James.
Howdy.
Whew! It's been a week, man.
It's been a fun week.
It's been a fun week. We got a lot of stuff that we've been preparing this week. We've been working back and forth, getting this stuff ready for you, the people. But man, it's been chaos, right? We're barely getting this off as it is. So I just wanted people to appreciate what we do. We go through the ringer for these people. So. It's fantastic to have you guys here with us. Today, we got a lot on the docket for you. We're going to talk about homelessness in Texas. We're going to talk about it's not a homelessness ban, right? They're not banning homeless people.
No.
But we are, placing limits on what homeless people are allowed to do. We're also talking about the abortion bill going to the Supreme Court from Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
Possible ban of a ban on
natural gas.
Natural gas, yeah. So it's not a ban; it's a ban of a ban.
Yeah.
So they're banning, right? So the ban on the
ban
I'm
train.
not going to be able to say that. It's the ban on the natural gas limitations, I suppose. I'm not even entirely sure how to phrase that. I know what it is, but I don't know how to phrase it. And then finally, we're going to be talking about the Olympics and whether the Olympics should be held in China. Spoiler alert: no, they should not. They shouldn't have been held there in 2008, but they were. So it's probably going to be what happens again. But we're going to give the Texas perspective on that. Once again, friends, this is a podcast where we talk about all things Texas, or at least the Texas perspective on national and global issues. And we're excited to have you here with us. How you doing, James? You doing all right?
I'm doing good. I just want to make sure people know you also can follow us on Twitter at Big and Bright Pod.
You're never going to let that go, are you?
No, we're never going to let that go. Just because I know how much it irritates you, and I'm happy to announce it that we have a Twitter. So please like and follow us.
And TikTok. We're on TikTok now.
Apparently, we have a TikTok.
We have a TikTok. So follow us. I don't know. Is an at TikTok? How does that work?
I don't know.
Let's talk to the producer. Hayden, how does it work? What are we? It's the same. It's Big Bright Pod, but there's no at symbol on TikTok. We are terrible at social media. We're garbage at social media. Yeah. So it is Big Bright Pod on TikTok and at Big Bright Pod on Twitter. Follow us there. Give us like, comment. It really helps out the channel. Also, like and comment here on YouTube, which really helps out the channel as well.
That's true.
We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you watching, but definitely the algorithm demands that we have activities. So you comment, we will comment back. You like, we will. I don't know. We'll be
figure that out
on the inside, I suppose.
Figure that out.
Lots been going on in the state, which again is kind of why it's been so chaotic this week for us.
Well, yeah, because the session is actually ends very soon on May the 29th, I believe.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff is moving and shaking.
This week and next week, we're gonna have a lot to talk about. But in the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and start off with today's big and bright idea. All right, so today's big and bright idea, Texas and homelessness. What should we do? How should we behave towards it? How should the government behave towards it? A lot going on when it comes to homelessness because there have been several pieces of legislation passed on both the local and the state level regarding homelessness in the state of Texas. So, James, I mean, you're the guy that got all the stats. What's been going on?
All right.
How's that been working?
So, for Austin City, if you didn't know, that actually the beginning of May, Texas had a voting session, mostly for localities. So for your city councils, for your mayors in some cities, or certain propositions. Austin happened to be Proposition B. Proposition B basically boils down to getting rid of homelessness encampments. Now, for those who don't live in Austin, congratulations. But homelessness has been a problem the past 2 years. The city council of the city of Austin has actually overturned the, I think it was 24 year long law that said encampments in certain areas can't happen. We're going to fine you. We're going to arrest you. We're going to move you.
Mm-hmm. That's 2017 when they overturned that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was done by the city council. No, it was done in 2019. It was done in 2019. Okay. The city council overturned that and said, well, we're not going to do that. Well, the city council only has so much power in the city of Austin, and after a certain period of time, it has to go to a vote. Well, it went to a vote. 58% of people, almost 58% in Austin said, yeah, we want this back in. Well, it's shocker of shockers.
Yeah.
Once the government's told something that they decided is actually now overturned, Well, they're going to take about 2 months to figure this whole thing out.
Gosh, this thing is crazy. This is so the whole by the people thing or for the people thing.
It only
is
works
just
if
kinda-
you're believing the
Yeah,
narrative.
it only works if you believe what we believe. And I mean, I suppose it kind of depends on how you think about government, right? Is a government a trustee of your interests, or is a government there to directly represent your interest? You know, you can make the case. Well, the city council was elected as a trustee of the of what
Right,
can
you're,
benefit
you're
the
a
people.
representative.
Yeah, but are you a direct representative, right? Meaning, do you need to enact exactly what the people say as they say it, or do you, as an elected official, have the right to interpret the will of the people as you see fit? I think that you could make a case if this was a purely city council vote, but it isn't. This is a vote that went directly to the people of Austin, and the people of Austin. And I know you said this isn't an overwhelming majority. 58% is a significant majority. 8 points is.
Eh.
8 points is a big difference, right? I mean, what the presidential election was decided by like what, half a point or something like that. 8 points is a big deal in elections, so it's not overwhelming, but it is a significant majority of the people said we want this done, and the Austin City Council says, well, we'll do it, but we're gonna what, drag our feet.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, according to Texas Scorecard, which is, by the way, a right-wing site, but that's why I said overwhelming. I was like, all right, I know what side you're on.
Links in the description, by the way.
Yeah. The city law was a response to the council's controversial 2019 pro-vagrancy decision. You can see again how well this is written. But to repeal the city's longstanding public camping rules, that's basically what it just said. So how they're handling it, Mayor Steve Adler, for the next month, the city will engage in what it calls education and outreach among city vagrants. That's basically a euphemism. Like, we're just gonna look into stuff.
We're not gonna do anything.
And after that, the city
anything.
will be spending another 30 days requesting voluntary compliance, because that's gonna work.
Yeah, volunteer. Well, I mean, it depends on what you're offering them, right? I mean, if you say, "Hey, I'll come over here. We'll give you a bed and some food, and and all, maybe some money or something like that." Who knows? Maybe you get some voluntary compliance, but on the aggregate, I would say not. But yeah, this whole thing of what education and what education and outreach
And outreach.
Yeah, education
What
and
does that
outreach.
mean?
It means nothing. It means they're not going to do anything.
It's just like we talked about in a couple episodes ago. It's number one on my list. We really care. Right. But have you checked it off the list? Well, no.
Yeah, and I
don't care then.
I have a question. And this is a serious question for those of you who are on the left. And again, we're pretty clearly on the right here on this podcast.
I don't know what side you're on, but okay.
Well, we're pretty clearly Texan.
There
right?
we go.
And Austin is just kind of a weird
California and Texas.
It's a weird outlier. And I really wish it wasn't our or it wasn't our state capital, but it is, and we got to deal with that. But I genuinely have a question for people on the left as it pertains to homelessness. Why are you so pro people living on the street? Who does that benefit? Right? Who are you being compassionate toward? Well, it's a matter of compassion. Who are you being compassionate towards? People who are living in tents. I've been to Austin recently. I've seen what it looks like. People are living in tents under overpasses in their own filth. That is not dignifying. That's not a good thing that should be promoted or allowed.
Well, there's plenty of studies out there as well that there's actually mental handicaps in various forms, like just not exactly like they can't think for themselves, but it's a lot of different things. And so you're not willing to help those who can't really help themselves, because sometimes obviously you can't afford the meds.
Yeah.
Well, and here's a controversial thing. You ready for my controversial thing?
Go for it. Controversial thing.
Open mental institutions again. They actually worked. There's
we
a few
have
bad
mental
apples
institutions.
that
They're called
screwed up the
hospitals.
entire thing. No. Actual mental
just
institutions.
straight up mental institutions.
They will help people again. But we don't want to do that because of the bad juju that some of them brought on themselves, and they got shut down, deservedly so. But maybe they were actually working if they have more oversight.
It's better than living in a tent on the street. I mean, it really is. I mean, it can't get much worse.
Well,
than
it's so
that.
unsafe, not from the health spectrum, but it's also unsafe from, well, who's going to take your stuff?
That's true.
Because I mean, if I just want your stuff and no one's really paying attention to you, because I don't know how caring you are, I'm pretty sure if you live in Austin or Dallas, you've learned to just look past these people. You don't see them as people.
Yeah,
I get it. It's bad, but I see your point. Well, if no one's really paying attention to you, then I'm just going to take your stuff, so it doesn't matter. The cops ain't going to come and help you.
That's the thing. Well, you can't even call the cops, even if they would.
Why not?
Because if you're a homeless person, right?
What?
Oh, you're talking about the homeless person taking somebody.
Yeah.
taking somebody's stuff. Yeah, I mean,
Because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of them have cell phones. Like, that's a huge
a lot of homeless people
misconception.
have
I
cell.
actually worked with a homeless ministry when I went to law school, and I'd speak with them about once a week, just
Mhm.
about God and different other stuff what they're going through, give them donuts and coffee.
Yeah.
And it's just once a week. But I found out quite a bit working with them that they have a lot more technology, a lot more stuff at their fingertips than you think of.
Mhm.
Some of them have iPhones. Like, you're right, it's the old iPhone, but it still works. My Wi-Fi,
iPhones, yeah,
I have it.
a lot of them have good earbuds and stuff like that. And that's not to say that homeless people aren't in a bad,
No,
aren't in a bad
they
spot.
definitely are. I'm just saying, like, they're not
They really are.
they're not as separate from society as people like to pretend they are.
And I want to make something very clear. This is not about us. This is not about the unsightly nature of homeless people. And that's what a lot of leftists seem to push on us,
Well,
right?
it's easy dig.
It's this attitude of, oh, you just don't want to look at them, right? You're going to disregard their humanity because
Well, it's an easy way to distract
it's-
because now I have to talk about the argument if I distract you.
It's about your standard of living. No, it's not. It's not about my standard of living. It's about these people. It's about these people having dignity and being able to get them off the street and being able to actually help them and get them to a place where they can take care of themselves. Because right now, nobody's taking care of them, and they're in absolute despotism, and we just don't
Right,
care?
that's
We're
the
just gonna
thing.
let them do it?
Well, no, that's the thing. Like, taking care of them is just letting them do what they want. It's like, well, then you're not helping them, because if you're not helping them get back on their feet, because a lot of them, people like to say, well, I've had friends that said, well, you obviously earn your way to be there, so I'm not going to help you. Like, you're just you've made so many bad decisions. Sometimes it really is just a bad dealt hand. And that bad dealt hand snowballs into a missed bill. That missed bill turned into a missed mortgage bill. And then you're 3 months down the road and you can't catch up. It's basically like people who are in credit card debt, thousands of dollars. Like, I just can't get above the debt.
It's true.
And then eventually you just give up.
Sometimes it's a debt snowball. Sometimes it's mental illness, which we need to be thinking more about.
Or
that.
it's a loss of a spouse. I mean, me and you were both married. If I lost my spouse, I'm losing my best friend. Yeah. And so I can imagine the toll that would take on a person, and you just let it go. I don't care anymore because my best friend's gone.
But let's put all that aside, which I'm not saying that that's an insignificant amount of homeless people that are under that situation. Let's put all that aside. Let's just talk about the people who got addicted to drugs, right? They're on drugs and they've gone a little crazy because they made bad decisions in life. And they, by all intents and for all intents and purposes, did earn their spot as a homeless person. So, I mean,
would you want to help them
legitimately?
get away from that?
Wouldn't you want to help that person? Wouldn't you want to? I mean, because people make bad decisions all the time. Sometimes they do earn their spot. Does that mean they're not worth our charity? Does that mean they're not worth our time or consideration? I mean, for sure, you want to help homeless people, and that should be the Texas attitude about this. Is we should want to help homeless people.
How so?
Well,
with what? I guess.
Well, okay, so first of all, I want to point out that what Austin City Council is doing here is not helping anything. Right? It does not help homeless people to simply allow them to live on the street, right?
Right. You're literally kicking the can down the road, and they're mad because they voted against. They figured the vote was actually in their favor.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't.
You're not wanting to do anything, and you're demanding that we call you compassionate for it. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. What should help, and again, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this for 1 second. I think that that law enforcement and the legal system does have a role to play here. Right? I do not, under any circumstances, think that should be our first line of defense against homelessness, right? That should not be plan A, is to involve law enforcement. They do have a role to play, and we'll get to that in just a second. I think, number one, this is where Texans have to really step up, right? The thing about community and the thing about being a decent society, in large part, is about how you treat your poor. And what you do for people who are absolutely beyond the spot where they can help themselves. Right now, this is a whole thing about welfare and things like that. I understand the argument about welfare is that welfare goes to a lot of people who don't actually need it, but there are people that do, right? And we need to, as a society, and when I say as a society, I'm not necessarily talking about the government. We need to wrap our arms around those people. This is a role for homeless ministries, like you're talking about. This is a role.
And like I said, mine was so minute and small. I literally gave them coffee and donuts and a person to talk to for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I didn't offer a lot, but that simple offer, I'm still friends with a few of those, and they'll message me because, again, they have cell phones.
Yeah.
And they'll message me like, hey, man, haven't seen you in a while. How you doing? Then I tell them, like, actually, I graduated, so I'm not going to be in that area anymore. They're like, oh, man, that's okay. Do you know of anything happening still? No, sadly, once I left, the ministry kind of dissipated.
Yeah.
But like it's a small connection, and I get it. I am in no way, shape, or form considering myself in any kind of echelon of like, look at me, I've helped people. I haven't. I gave them free coffee and donuts and a conversation. But you'd be surprised how many people do not want to look at them as a person because they just don't want to see the problem.
Yeah.
Like, no. If I don't look at it, I don't see it. If I don't realize it, I don't have to talk about it. And that's what I was talking about earlier with the compassion argument. That's an easy distractor, because they don't have to actually address how to solve this problem. Because I was going to consider you as a person who doesn't care. And once I have that as the pinpoint argument, then I'm just going to keep on that one.
Yeah. What's really going to solve the homeless problem is individuals choosing to look at these people as people and treating them with dignity. That's what's going to happen, right? And
I read a few articles about this because, I mean, like I said, I gave you a massive dump of articles. Like, you wanted homelessness, here you go, bud.
Big old dump of articles.
And basically, a lot of the city council members for the biggest cities in Texas, a lot of them said around the same thing, which was the biggest thing you can do is give to homeless shelters or homeless type of outreaches and not to the actual person. And they said, we get that seems counterproductive, but you're not sure where that money is going if you give it directly to the person, but you are sure it's going to help homeless people if you give it to the organization.
And that's
a hard thing, I know, to swallow, but that's a part of it.
And this is a thing, man. I mean, we're talking about, there's people making $300 a day out there panhandling and asking for money. A lot of these people aren't even homeless. Like, that's the thing, is a lot of these people, they have homes and stuff. They just make more money doing this than they did at their job. They make more tax-free money doing this than they did at their job.
That's the only part I'm with them on. It's like, well, it's tax-free. I'm like, all right, I'm with you on that part.
But that's an incentive structure that needs to be overcome, right? We need to stop this. And people, again, you shouldn't have the right to go out and beg for money, especially if you don't need it, right? That's just, I don't know why, but there's something wrong with that.
Well, this really came into the forefront as well, because Austin did this in the beginning of May, like we discussed. Well, now Texas as a whole has actually voted on this. Texas has voted in our House and our Senate. It's called House Bill 1925, would make camping in an unimproved public space a Class C misdemeanor punishable by a fine of up to $500. It calls for law enforcement officers to redirect homeless people to available local resources, such as shelters and nonprofit groups, before or at the time they issue a citation. So they're trying to help them because the usual demonization of this bill was, oh, you don't care, you want to put them all in prison. No. Yeah. But if they choose to not help themselves, then yes, we're going to have to go to prison. Because again, it sounds weird, but the most compassionate thing you can do for the person is to get them in a schedule. And sadly, a prison will certainly do that.
We'll get you in a schedule. Yeah, it'll get you in a routine.
Make you realize maybe I don't want to do that again. It's not like the 1930s, which, by the way, if you didn't know, 1930s it was actually illegal to be homeless.
Okay.
Nationally, it was illegal to be homeless.
To not have.
I don't know how that worked since it was Depression era.
Yeah.
But that's how it was in the books.
Well, I mean, that was I'm sure in combat depression, the depression era of we'll just make it illegal, and then people will suddenly have
they'll be forced to work. And it's that didn't work out.
That didn't work. That's not the way economies work. But here's the thing: the big scary thing about this is that people say, "Oh, you want to get the police involved," and really, I think this is more against the police than it is pro homelessness. I don't think anybody thinks it's good for people to be homeless, but the reason, but
they also won't solve the problem.
I am trying. For those of you listeners out there, I'm trying to see this from your perspective, and it's hard. It's hard. You got to turn your brain off in a real serious way to see it from the left's perspective, especially on issues like this. But I think the issue here is about the police more than it is about homelessness.
They just don't like the police?
They don't like the police. They don't want to get the police involved in regulating homelessness because they think police means big, scary. They think police means people dying. They think police means incarceration and stuff like that. And
they forget what beat cops do. Beat cops actually, the reason they're called beat is they walk the same beat every time and multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And they're street cops all around Dallas. Well, they know the area. They know the people. They'll talk to them. They'll have a conversation with them. And it's like, how you doing, Jim? And they'll be like, oh, whatever. And just move on. But they at least see like, oh, wait, Jim doesn't look so good. He looked better yesterday. What happened? Like, Jim, did you get in a fight? What's going on? And they'll talk to him. And that's how a lot of police actually get information, is these simple beat cops, which works sort of like social workers when it comes to just having conversations with people who are in the community that they run.
Yeah.
And if they help them out, it's like, hey, man, you can't be here. Come on. No, we're not going to arrest you. You can't be here. Come on. And they'll help them, and they'll help them find different things. And from what I learned, again, with the ministry that I did, was there's a few people who just want to be homeless. That's not the majority, but they wouldn't want to deal with the resources because the resources made them actually do a drug program.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, I don't do it a lot, but I like to have whatever drug it is. Well, if you're
There's-
not willing to help themselves, then
There's freedom in being homeless.
that's the way to look at it.
There's a lack
yes.
of resources, but there's also a lack of responsibility. And responsibility and resources, they go hand in hand. A lot of homeless people recognize that, and they just don't. They're scared to get into that. But the thing is, gosh, leftists, it must be hell inside your head. If you believe that police officers are walking around writing citations to homeless people, which, by the way, police officers know that a homeless person is not going to be able to pay a $500 fine. They're not.
Yeah, you're not going to pay that.
What, the guy's going to go to a court date? What's wrong with you? Right? But these people, they believe that they're walking around with billy clubs just beating homeless people for sport.
Get
If
out of
that's
here.
what you
Get out of
believe
here.
most police officers do, your life must be terrifying. Because, guys, that's not what police officers are for. Police officers are there to regulate the community. Yes, they are there to occasionally catch bad guys. Yes, they're going to occasionally get into violent altercations, right? And those are the ones that we see on the news. But most of the life of a day-to-day beat cop is actually helping people.
It's actually pretty boring.
It's actually pretty boring. Yeah, I mean, if you've ever done a ride-along with a beat cop, it's not the most exciting thing always.
Like
unless
it
you know.
reminds me of a show we both like, Parks and Rec.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Dwyer, he's trying to become a cop, and like the cop is actually just there as a simple little thing. He's taking notes. He goes, "Wait, is this what you do? Like you're gonna be like busting skulls or everything?" He goes, "This is most of the job." He's like, "That's pretty boring." He's
Most of
like,
the job's paperwork.
"Well, if you don't like this, maybe rethink about becoming a cop because you're not gonna have a lot of action. You don't want a lot of action every day. You're not Jason Bourne. All right, we're basic cops.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we never have to use our gun, but we have it if we need to.
But a police officer can actually, and again, if you're going to have a system with the government involved, with the police involved, it's got to look like this. The police officer's got to be able to detain that person, take them, yes, probably to jail for a little bit of time, and then find a way to direct them, maybe write them a citation, and direct them to a resource that they can utilize to help maybe get them employed, maybe deal with mental health issues, maybe deal with drug addiction, and give the person the option to take that route.
Right, that's what Dallas does. Dallas and Houston. Houston, by the way, if you didn't know, is actually one of the models when it comes to how they deal with homelessness.
They do, because there's a billion people.
Well, yeah, Houston's massive.
There's a massive amount of people.
For
in
Dallas, they actually cite and arrest panhandlers as well, and we'll get into that.
Mhm.
The community courts actually help these individuals with their citations, their criminal offenses, and connect them with services to assist them with homelessness, unemployment, and substance abuse. And of course, like we discussed earlier, mental illnesses, if that's what they are. That's actually good. So yes, we'll give you a citation, but that's literally for the books. We're going to help you get paid that if you're willing to go through a program. It's almost like a smaller form of, okay, you got busted for drunk driving. How do I make this fee go lower? Well, if you do all this community service, it'll still be a ping on your record, but it'll be a much lower ping if you're willing to do all these things.
And here's another
if you're
thing you
not,
should do.
then you can just pay it and it'll be on your record.
Yeah. Here's another thing you should do. And this is, I think a lot of judges already do this, but this should actually be written in the law. If they go with one of these options, we have some state approved options, right? So you say, hey, you got this $500 fine, but we're going to direct you to this resource about drug addiction or mental health resource or employment resource, whatever the judge deems they need. If they go with that option and they actually are successful at it, there is no reason why these people need to pay a fee if the point actually is rehabilitation. But
Well, that's on the prosecutors, though.
that involves,
Because the judge can't do that in Texas. I don't know if you know that, but judges can't. Judges are not the ones who dismiss
Okay.
the case. A
Well,
prosecutor
yeah,
has to do it. The
prosecutors
judge
can
says,
dismiss it.
okay, if that's what the state's opinion is, then they'll enforce it.
yeah, okay, but then again, then prosecutors need to do it. But whoever's involved needs to understand that there needs to be a little compassion for these people, because the point of arresting homeless people is not to put them in jail. It is to rehabilitate them and make them a member of society. That's how societies grow and flourish and benefit. But that involves the state and the agents of the state, aka police officers. And I know that police, right, we have this whole like defund the police situation, which again, I can't wrap my head around how they want to defund the police and just let people live on the street. Are they actively pushing for the degradation of society? I mean,
Well, yeah, that's how you start over.
no. I mean, they're literally like, you know what would be great? You seen the movie Mad Max? Wouldn't
great.
that be awesome? Right. That's what we're talking about here. You're talking about defunding the people that can deal with the homeless issue and just letting people live on the street in tents. That's not compassionate. That's not only not good for society, it's not good for the people that you're involved with. And yeah, that's probably going to involve some uncomfortable situations, like the fact that homeless people probably need to go to mental institutions or they need to go to jail, right? So that they can get off the
Sometimes
street
you
and
need a
then get
readjustment. That's
directed towards resources.
and that's the kick in the pants you need is a readjustment. And I get that doesn't seem like it's compassionate, but neither is letting them just wallow in their own filth. Like, and I mean, it's a tough situation because people want to, again, like I said earlier, they go at that same argument because they don't want to actually discuss the true actual argument. But what I found is that most cities, especially even the bigger cities in Dallas, like Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, obviously, Fort Worth, they allow some form of panhandling, but not aggressive panhandling. And now that took me some effort to find what the heck is aggressive panhandling, because you just say it.
As long as you're not particularly aggressive about it.
Yeah. And I found finally an article that talked about it, and they had a little video about it. It's like, someone asking for money touches you or makes you afraid. That's the vaguest and the only way to say that's aggressive.
I mean, if somebody is willing to actually go out of their way to get a police officer involved, right? And I mean, I know you're going to have the curse of the Karen, right? Just any
That's
you
the
know,
thing. It's
any
subjective.
crazy. But again, that's what a police officer's discretion is for.
Yeah.
When a police officer shows up and be like, "Hey, like, listen, this guy's not doing anything. He's not hurting you. You're not hurting him." Well, he's being aggressive. Well, at that point, you just say, "Okay, I'm not taking calls from this lady anymore," right? or this gentleman, right?
Janet, is this you again?
Guys can be Karens too, right? So you want to make sure that you're not being sex discriminate on that. But the fact is, I'm not going to deal with this person anymore if this person's calling for no reason. But I think if you're going to say yes, I think it has to be subjective, right? Because it's if you feel threatened. If you feel threatened, then you're going to call the police.
Yeah.
And I would say,
and rightfully so. I mean, I shouldn't have to be like, well, do I feel threatened or not? It's like, just call. You know
if
what?
you've only seen homeless people and beggars in America, then you're probably a little ambiguous as to what aggressive panhandling is. Go to another country. Go to a place like Egypt, or go to a place, like, I don't know, modern day Palestine. Go to a place like
another foreign country like San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco, right? Where people, I mean, those types of, especially places that have a really heavy tourist industry and a lot of homeless people and some not homeless people make their entire living based on selling little trinkets and stuff like this. You also see this in Western countries like Paris. Like, there's all these sorts of people around in Paris. That's aggressive, man.
New Orleans
will follow you to your car.
New Orleans is aggressive.
No.
Of the past 2 times I've been in New Orleans, I have been just ambushed in the street. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, all right, hey, how you doing? Like, all right, come on, give me some money.
Because they anticipate that you're drunk. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, yeah,
I'm not that wasted.
Hey, here's some beads or whatever.
No, I purposely put my wallet in my front pocket because I don't trust you.
So yeah, for me, I think aggressive panhandling, you're gonna use the pornography argument, meaning I can't define it, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of how it has to be.
Right, because if you put a perfect tight little bow on it, it's like, well, there's so many exceptions to that. It's like, right, so we'll keep it vague.
Exactly.
That's my little tiff against it, but I get it.
So Texans, our Texas attitude of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and if you're homeless, it's because you deserve to be there. You got to get off that train. If you're on that train, you got to get off.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
there's so many different factors of why someone is homeless, and to assume it's because they're dumb or they made a bad decision, so you got to live with it. Just bad things sometimes happen.
And it's also not beneficial to society to assume that.
No.
Right? You need to
make sure that
you need to make sure that you have some level of compassion for the poor among you, because that's what helps society grow and flourish.
I think that's in a book somewhere we believe in.
Yeah, I was going to say that might be in a little book written thousands of years ago by, several different
Give it a
authors.
read. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nice book. Also, not a good idea to ignore the problem. Allowing people to simply live on the street does not a good society make. It does not help those individuals flourish, and it does not help society as a whole flourish. So, not a good idea to ignore it. Also, not a good idea to just assume that these people deserve it. Because either way, you're ignoring the real issue, which is how do we deal in a compassionate way with these individuals? How do we help them out? Okay? And right now, you got totally crazy people on the left and similarly crazy people on the right that are just causing no issue. It's causing no solution.
It boils down to you have consequences for your actions. Mm-hmm. And if you're given full notice on we're not going to allow you camping here, and then you camp here, then we're going to have to give you a consequence. And you'd hold anyone else to the same kind of standard. It's like, well, I forgot to wear my seatbelt and I didn't get in a crash, so what's the big deal? Well, you were on notice about the seatbelt. Here's a ticket. You don't like it, too bad. We told you, you knew this, and you had to sign that off whenever you got your license. You knew there's signs everywhere that said you can't camp here, and what'd you do? You camp there. Well, too bad.
That's where it is, man. The point is, these people are people, and you got to treat them as such,
Mhm.
both with
They're
compassion
not lower individuals. They're
and
just
also with
people.
responsibility. You can't have different expectations for them, all right? People are people, and that's just the way it is here in Texas. You want to do the 3 hots?
3 hots.
Let's do the 3 hot takes. All right, 3 hot takes. Topic the first.
Mississippi abortion law.
Topic the second.
Banning natural gas bans.
Topic the third.
Olympic boycotts.
All right, so I know that this is a Texas podcast, but friends, we got to talk about Mississippi. Because Texas, by the way, just passed our own abortion ban.
We
right?
did.
We did.
Greg Abbott signed it.
All right, so we are officially in law as far as a heartbeat bill in Texas. Very excited about that. Leading the way on that. Very happy. Actually, we didn't lead the way on it, but we followed it. We did it. We're moving, right? And we're going to talk about whether the Supreme Court is going to see that case, which it very well may. But before that, the Supreme Court's got to deal with Mississippi.
Yes, they do, Nick. So the Supreme Court is going to they've actually had enough 4 justices sign off to, we want to make a ruling on the Mississippi abortion ban. The question that's going to be answered in this whole Supreme Court case is whether all pre-viability prohibitions on elective abortions are unconstitutional, which is a vague thing, but the usual argument is if it's not viable, you have the right to abort it, because that's the rulings that have come down, like I've said multiple times, from Roe v. Wade to Casey v. Planned Parenthood. Yeah. That has been the crux. If it's pre-viable, then it's okay.
Yeah.
Which we discussed last time, makes no sense to me, because even after the full term, that kid is still useless to help him or herself, however it identifies.
Viability is a retarded argument.
Yes.
Because viability is always changing, which is another thing we're going to get to on this particular law.
Well, the case involved a Mississippi law that would prohibit abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. So actually not that far of a limit from the basic 24, like I said, the talking point, to now 15. Not that big. The state's ban has been blocked by 2 lower courts as inconsistent with Supreme Court precedent that protects a woman's right to obtain an abortion before the fetus can survive outside her womb. That's the basic of it. This was enacted in 2018, blocked after federal court challenge, again, because Roe v. Wade kind of says you can't do that. Mm-hmm. So understandably, why the lower courts have said, yeah, according to Supreme Court law, you can't do it. The state's, this is about the funny thing I learned about, the state's only abortion clinic remains open. This owner has said the clinic does abortions up to 16 weeks. So it literally limits that one week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just happy it's finally coming up. Because, yes, Amy Coney Barrett's on the court. Yes, she likely is going to be against abortion. And finally, Chief Justice Roberts will be freaking stymied. Can't stand the man.
ACB.
Clarence Thomas better write the freaking opinion, though.
Oh, he will.
He better be the one that writes the opinion.
Thomas
will
writes
be great.
the opinion. Now, it's important, for those of you that don't know, it is important who writes the opinion. Because the way that they write the opinion is what actually sets the Supreme Court precedent.
And Thomas would be the best one to write it.
It's a good way to go, right? So we're actually moving forward on abortion law in the United States Supreme Court, which is a big deal because that wasn't happening before. It wasn't even that Roe v. Wade wasn't going to get overturned. It's we weren't even going to get a case that could possibly even challenge it. Now, I don't think this is going to overturn Roe v. Wade. I think we have some dangers here for Planned Parenthood v. Casey. Right, I think that
possibly
that runs a risk of being overturned. I think Roe is still safe at this point.
We'll see, maybe.
So, what is the court actually? What is the question actually posed to the court for this? In the clearest way you can possibly say it for our viewers, what is the actual question that needs to be answered here?
Can a state make their own laws in pre-viability portion of a pregnancy?
In pre-viability, right? So can they regulate pre-viability abortions?
It basically can allow, and this is why I disagree with you about Roe v. Wade, because if it allows because this is a vague question, but if it doesn't like alter it a little bit or kind of say, well, I mean, this is easy to say, let's actually really go into it and narrow the issue while they answer the question, it could overturn Roe v. Wade, because then it would go basically back to it's a state right. You decide as a state what you want to do. You voted that in.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to vote that in or you can't get it passed, you can whine all you want to. If you don't have over 50%, you got nothing. Sorry about you.
10th Amendment. 10th Amendment. Yes, they can absolutely make laws.
That old amendment that needs to be dusted off and looked at once or twice again.
States can absolutely make laws. And I think that, okay, so here's the thing. I think this actually, I'm going to backtrack on what I said earlier about this not being a challenge to Roe. Roe is the case that basically says that it is in the Constitution, that it is a constitutional right.
Where?
I'm getting there, right? It's a constitutional right for abortion. It's in the Constitution, therefore the states can't do anything about it. If we challenge this, we're then saying, no, the states can make laws regarding it, meaning it's not actually a constitutional right, which it's not, by the way.
It was created in whole cloth.
It's in the penumbra.
Well, what's funny is
it's the only reason you ever have to use the word penumbra.
Good golly. That's you got the legal scholars on
it's
Twitter.
In the shadows of the Republican.
Well, side note, if you ever want some fun time and you have some spare time on your hands, go to Twitter, look up, just search Amy Coney Barrett. That's all you got to search, and then press enter. And to see the fun of people just losing their minds over Amy Coney Barrett because this is going up to the court.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Stand her. They're all for women except
this one. Except for Catholic women that adopt Haitian babies.
Yeah. But she's still racist. But she literally has black kids.
She literally has black kids.
Racist.
Gosh. No, the way that they found, this is actually an interesting thing. The way that they found the Supreme Court, the right to an abortion in the Constitution, it happened like, have you ever seen the movie National Treasure, where Nicolas Cage is like putting lemon juice on the backside of the Constitution,
right?
Getting heat to it to reveal the mysterious text.
By the way,
that's actually how they found the right to an abortion in the Constitution.
You do know that's a true story, right?
Absolutely,
of course.
Right? They just went there and it said, right to abortion.
Oh, there it is. we never flipped the page over. That was our problem.
This case comes through and they say, Texas, right? Mississippi can make laws regarding pre-viability abortion. You're presenting a big challenge to Roe.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to overturn it right away, but it's certainly going to create a precedent for the challenging of it.
I think it will take a piece off. Like, because I mean, the best hope is to overturn it. That's at least how I feel. I don't know how you feel out there, but obviously we've been pretty steadfast on where we stand. But I think it will just minimize it. It won't totally overturn it. It will minimize it. That's why I say that the question itself is vague, but them answering the question, I think they'll answer like half of it to be like, all right, here's a step in the right direction, because you can't overdo it. But then again, you gave all this right when you weren't even elected.
And for those of you crazy people out there that believe if Roe gets overturned that it's going to be the Handmaid's Tale and that abortion will be outlawed in the United States, you don't know your legal history. And you don't know the way federalism works. If Roe gets overturned, it goes back to the way it was before, which you know what it was? It was states that wanted to could allow it, but states that wanted to outlaw it could also allow that.
You know when Roe went in, the majority of states didn't even actually allow abortion. Their majority said like no. And they said, yeah, but because this minority exists, we should expand it. Like, even the statewide, you can't even get over 51%. And so you're just going to write it in by 9 justices because they can.
Yep.
Which, by the way, I've heard this argument multiple times. Men should stay out of women's wombs. You shouldn't give us direction on what we can and can't do with our bodies. Men literally wrote the law that gave you that right you claim to have. Yep. So there's women now on there, and they're going to make a ruling on it. So you got to get over it now. There's women there. And if she's the one that is the deciding factor to overturn a certain portion of it, well, this is what you want.
How crazy would it be if a Supreme Court of men gave women their mysterious penumbra right to an abortion, and then it was a Supreme Court with how many?
There's 3 women.
There's 3 women with 3 women on it that took it away. That said, no, you know what? That was stupid. That was dumb. And by the way, I'm sorry. This argument about you're a man, you can't say anything. I understand that there's a certain experience that I will never have as a man. I get it, right? I understand fully that I will actually never bear and conceive a child as a man because I'm not a crazy person that believes men can have babies.
But at least we can vote.
That's a topic for another day, right? And voting's different, right? But here's the thing. My being a man does not... My being a man does not make a baby not a person, right? It doesn't mean being a man does not mean that I can't think through these issues and I can't make an assessment, right? I don't like killing people. I think murder is bad. I have never been a murderer. I have never been in a situation where I thought being a murderer and murdering somebody was a viable thing. Never done it. Never had that experience. That doesn't mean I can't make the statement murder is wrong.
Well, it has been proven that you're not a murderer, though. Let's
be
fair. The allegation's still out there.
Allegedly not a murderer. Here's the thing. I've never been a plantation holder, right? I've never been a slave owner. I've never had that experience, but I still think slavery's bad. Right? Does that mean you say, oh, well, you don't, what would that have been like if all the slave owners in the South, and I'm pretty sure some of them did this, say, well, you don't own slaves, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't have my experience, you don't know what would happen to me if you took my slaves away, so you shouldn't, non-slaveholders shouldn't be making decisions for slaveholders. That's garbage. It's a stupid argument.
Well, that's what was done in the Senate. Like, that's why they have to call it the peculiar situation or peculiar institution. That was the first pretty much speech law done by the Democrats of the South, saying, like, don't call it slavery because it's bad. That literally made it where every time you talked about on the record for the state Senate, or not state Senate, the United States Senate, they'd have to say peculiar institution. That way that was their euphemism to talk about. It's like, see, it's not that bad. We're not even talking about slavery. It's like, right, because you made sure we couldn't say the word slavery.
Again, if you control language, man, you control everything. If you control the way people talk about stuff, you control everything. You control the culture entirely. That being said, stop telling me that I can't have an opinion about this because I'm a man. I can still sire a child, and I still should have a responsibility to determine whether or not we should be killing children.
Yeah, and this won't happen for like another year. The argument will not go to the Supreme Court likely until the end of the session or probably the beginning of next session, so we likely won't hear anything for another year and a half. But in that year and a half, oh boy, we're going to see articles saying like, how dare they, blah, blah, blah. How dare the court overturn something they decided. That's how it works.
That's how it works.
Sorry about you.
That's what Brown v. Board was, so shut up. And by the way, Mississippi, good on you. You guys are doing good work down there. Topic the second, let's talk about the ban.
The natural gas ban.
All right, so we are banning natural gas.
Correct.
So it's a ban.
According to Texas Tribune,
Put more ban in the ban.
Abbott signed a bill into law that prohibits Texas cities from banning natural gas as a fuel source for new construction and utility services. The sponsor was State Rep Joe Deschel. Terrible with names.
Joe Deschel.
He's from Beaumont, a Democrat, actually. He argued that banning the natural gas would restrict consumer choices. That was the main reason why. And he said, basically, he filed it in response to what's happening on the West Coast, where cities have passed energy efficiency plans that prohibit new subdivisions from offering natural gas heating, requiring instead that new homes be heated by electricity. It's literally just saying we want to have all the options. That's the basic of it is.
Yeah.
The reasoning is using electricity to heat homes rather than natural gas reduces greenhouse gas emissions. That's why they make that claim. But if the grid breaks down again, it really doesn't matter. So, yeah, my opinion is this is great, but maybe focus on that whole natural disaster that happened. But
yeah,
we're not talking about that.
I think that might be a cause for this, and we'll talk
natural
about
gas
that in a sec.
was lost during that whole time.
Natural gas. We didn't have natural gas during that time, and say, well, electricity is reliable. No, it's not.
No,
talk to anybody in Houston that went through that storm and tell me that electricity is reliable. It's not. I mean, it is in most cases, but it's not a good emergency fuel source. You know what it is? Natural gas. Natural gas is an amazing fuel. And for those of you that I will never understand this, right? I mean, coal and oil, we've kind of stigmatized that to a certain extent. And I do get it, especially with coal, right? Coal, there's very obvious air pollutants with coal.
Well, it's just mean. Because when Santa gives you coal, it's a bad day.
It's a bad day, right? Oil, again, and like I said, you got the whole greenhouse gas effect, that's a total different topic, right? But those of you guys that are against natural gas, you're insane. Natural gas is a miracle. It's an absolute.
That's the reason our emissions went down.
Yes.
Despite not being in this amazing Paris Accord.
It drops emissions. It's 30% cleaner than oil or coal. It's cheaper. It's significantly cheaper than both oil and coal. The only issue with natural gas is storage. It's the matter that it's not as dense as oil and coal, and so it takes more to store. That's the only issue. Everything else is amazing benefit, right? You're talking about, again, it's cheaper to produce, right? So you've got economic benefits. It's reducing greenhouse gases. It's cleaner, right? So you don't have actually.
I'm ticking every woke box, and you still hate it because you get it by fracking.
Well, because we get it by fracking, and because it's a fossil fuel. We need to get away from fossil fuels. Which, okay, well, whatever. We can talk about nuclear, but you don't want to talk about nuclear either.
That's
right?
bad.
That's bad because nuclear, even though the fact that we took all the nuclear waste that's been compiled since the Manhattan Project, it couldn't fit inside AT&T Stadium. Right? There's just not that much of it. But nuclear is a whole other issue. The point is that, let's say that we need to move away from fossil fuels. We need to have energy in the meantime.
Yeah.
Right? We need to find a way to. There needs to be stepping stones.
No, that's the biggest issue is we need to ban this. We need to stop that because green. But you're not offering solution. You're just saying it's bad and we'll figure that part out after we ban it. No. That's not how it works. Like, all right, figure out how to work without that tire. Drive on 3. We'll figure that out. No, I'm going to fix the 4th tire.
Yep.
I can't just undo what we know of technology just because we don't like it. No, we use the technology we have at the moment and then figure out, like we've said before, research and develop situations to make it cheaper, because until it's cheaper, there's no reason to turn to it, because regular people then can't afford it. So go back to, well, the elites have electricity and plebes do whatever you want.
And you know what you need for R&D?
What?
You need energy. You need energy. You need to be able to keep the lights on in order to do R&D. You have to have stepping stones. There needs to be steps from one to the other. Going straight into solar and wind is going to make you end up like Germany, where Germany has surpluses where they're actually selling energy to other countries, and then they have extreme blackouts. They have rolling blackouts all over the country and deficits where they're actually having to buy energy from France, who went nuclear, right? It's the best thing I've ever said about the French, right? But they're having to buy energy from France in order to make sure that they can keep the lights on for their citizens. That's what happens when you go from 0 to 100. It's talking about electricity. I'm all for eventually getting away from fossil fuels, but you have to utilize fossil fuels in the meantime in order to do that.
Well, that's the smugness of the people who drive a Tesla or any kind of electric car. It's like, see, I help the environment. Where do you plug that sucker in? Really? Really?
You know what you're burning
You think
for
it's
that?
just magic that you're getting the clean energy to put in your car? That's not how it works.
And in fact, most electrical energy still comes from coal plants. Right, so you're talking about, now again, if you're talking about the aggregate, you're actually reducing coal emissions, but you're still utilizing coal in order to do that. If you up the natural gas, that's just the way to, and people don't like fracking, and there are issues with fracking. It does cause tremors, right? I experienced my first earthquake ever in Texas, and it was a little one, right? It's a little bitty, but we don't get earthquakes in Texas, but occasionally, right, they were doing fracking out there in Irving, and you did feel a little tremor at one point. So again, there can be issues with how we harvest this stuff, but the fact is, we have enough natural gas in the United States of America to power the entire country for the next century, for the remainder of the century. There's over 2,000.
And according to AOC, I mean, we have a lot of natural gas we're just not honing in. We got a lot of cow farts out there we're not using for fuel. Why are we not using cow farts?
What? What are you talking? Why are we not using cow farts? Because we're not using cow farts. We're not harvesting cow.
I know we're not doing it, Nick. We need to harness the
and we're not
energy
going to do it. No, we're not going to do that. We're not doing that. That's
I
disordered.
want my house.
That's a
fully run on
disordered
cow
means
farts.
of using cow flatulence. Then you're welcome to. You can have cows outside the back of your apartment, and you can make sure that you're powering
attached to their butts.
Yeah. If that's how you want to live your life, that's fine. But I don't. I want to stick with natural gas.
What's the weird smell in your house? Don't worry about it.
We have over 2 quadrillion gallons of natural gas, right? It's like 2,000. It's like what? It's like 2,000 trillion or something.
I don't think you have
that.
a site there.
I can cite it, right? It's right here on groupmet.com. I'll find it. You keep talking. I'll find it.
Yeah. So, while Nick finds this made up number he just figured out, I really just think it's a great way it's a great bill. And if you claim is like, well, Republicans only care. Well, this is the state sponsor was a Democrat. So there's that. But I think it goes back to the original argument he has. It's just that we don't want to restrict consumer choices. If you decide to make your house greener, to put solar panels, whatever it may be on your house, you can do that. But we're not going to take away the availability for regular people who don't want to do that kind of thing. Because again, it really just goes back to expense. If it's expensive, regular people can't buy it. Then you're back to the elites have it, but the poor people don't. That's a bad situation. But while you look for that stat, we're going to have to move along, Nick.
Yeah, let's go on to topic the third. Yeah, third hot.
Olympics boycott. All right. This is about the China Olympics in February. It's on February 4, 2022. It's the Winter Olympics. A coalition representing Uyghurs, Tibetans, residents of Hong Kong, and others issued a statement Monday calling for a full-blown boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. This is according to AP News. The quotes they have are this time for talking with the IOC is over. IOC is the government body or head body over the actual Olympics. These games cannot be as usual or business as usual because not for the IOC and not for the international community.
All right, pause real quick.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so according to the Energy Information Administration, it's not gallons, it's cubic feet. There's about 2,276 trillion cubic feet over the United States. That's over a third cubic feet.
There's a lot of Cuban feet.
Cubit. I thought I said cubit, like cubits in the Bible, right? Cubit and a half for the ark. Right? No, the point is there's over 2,276 trillion cubic feet within the United States, which is over a third of the natural gas worldwide is in the United States.
Wow.
That is enough to power the entire United States for the remainder of the century.
That's
Move
fine.
on, talk about the Uyghurs.
Okay.
Sorry.
The push for the boycott, this came a day before a joint hearing in the U.S. Congress focusing on Beijing Olympics and China's human rights record, which has not been great. The IOC's response to all this is like, whoa, we're not a super world government, so we can't be doing this and just claiming bad things about other countries. Well, they can, because the other countries are held to a higher standard, because the IOC included human rights requirements several years ago for the host city contract for the 2024 Paris Olympics, but did not include those guidelines for China.
Yeah.
So you could do it, and you did it years ago, but you wouldn't put it for China. Why not? What's the reason there? Well, we know they won't sign up on that. Yeah, so don't do it in China then.
Exactly.
Simple as that.
And I'm guaranteeing
Because I don't know if you know this about the 2008 Beijing Olympics. For 2008, they kicked out so many people, and if you didn't want to leave, well, we'll make you disappear.
Yeah.
And
They shouldn't. Let me be clear. They should not have hosted it in
let's
China.
Get a steamroller, get all these poor people out here. Boom, put a stadium. Look, it's awesome in China.
It's not awesome in China, and we shouldn't have been doing it in 2008. And by the way, the World Cup does the same thing. You know, the World Cup's going to be doing it in Qatar.
Yeah. Well, when Brazil did it, they had some stories because finally people have realized this. Like, what about all these poor people? They're like, yeah, we're just going to get rid of them.
We're going to get rid of them, yeah. And
they just move on. Like, why are you worried about that? Move on.
We're going to put them into slave labor camps to make our vuvuzelas. Right. Actually, no, that was South Africa. Never mind. Probably still the same issue. No, I don't know. I'm not well versed enough. I'm not well versed enough on South Africa to make a statement like that. That being said, Qatar is absolutely using slave labor to build stadiums for the world.
We're not talking about Qatar.
But the point is, with these international sporting competitions, there needs to be some sort of check. And I think the only way you can make a check like that is countries need to start backing out of it. I think the United States says we're not going to participate in the
even
Olympics
Pelosi was like, we should do a diplomatic boycott. And the diplomatic boycott means the state representatives, state meaning presidents, some kind of secretary, anything that involves with representing the United States as a whole, they should boycott it. Not the athletes, because they work so hard for it. And I get from that aspect, because you have worked so hard and you're told, yeah, you can't go. Nothing you did, you just can't go. But she said, well, the presidents and the Supreme Court, not Supreme Courts, they don't go. But the secretaries, they shouldn't be there in the stadiums, because if by sitting in the stadium, it's going to be used as propaganda, understandably so, that, hey, look, see, they're actually fine with it. I don't know what the complaint is, because they even showed up.
Yeah. Well,
that's what she's claiming we should do as America.
We need to get the Olympic International Committee on board. I mean,
we freaking created it.
The IOC, the International Olympic.
We freaking revamped.
Yeah, we built it.
The Olympics. If those who didn't know, Olympics actually went gone, and America said, "Well, why aren't this not going on anymore? Let's just do it." And they've taken the brunt of all this. They said, "Well, we'll just fund it so we can get a world competition again, because I think it's a great thing to have all the worlds meet at once."
Isn't there another international organization that the United States basically funds and?
It's called the freaking UN.
That also promotes terrorist regimes.
You want to defund something? Defund the freaking UN.
Defund the UN while we're at it. But I mean, that's the thing, is the United States says, hey, we're going to pull our funding from the IOC unless the IOC moves.
Well, and that's what this coalition of people, they're actually going to. They've started like, well, the IOC won't listen to us, so we'll go to the next level, which is the people who broadcast it. NBC, if you didn't know, they're the ones who mostly broadcast all the Olympic stuff.
Yep.
And about 40% of the funding and the broadcasting and how it works is done by NBC. So they said we can get NBC on board. The rest of it's small stuff like 10, 15, 5, like little stuff, but they're the chunk. So we can get them on board. Maybe we can get some rollouts here.
I'll tell you, and I'd be very shocked if NBC got on board with this.
I just don't care about the Olympics as well. I'll be honest. I really don't care.
I do. It's
a sport we care about for 1 month out of 4 years.
Well, it's also a national thing, right? You're also you're cheering for the United States, and I mean, as somebody, so I was in a sport that is primarily an Olympic sport.
Yeah,
and so
made famous by that
by
that sweet dude who has the record.
By good old Michael Phelps. What country he swim for? That's right, the
America.
US of A.
America.
By the way, did you know this? If Michael Phelps was his own country in the 2008 Olympics, he would have been the 4th highest grossing country as far as medals is concerned.
Getting them goals, baby.
That's right. He got all the goals.
Side note.
USA.
I feel bad for these Olympic people who win the golds, because it's amazing they got it. When they come back to America, they got to pay tax on that gold.
What?
Yeah.
no.
Like, I literally earned this. And it's like, yeah, we're going to get a cut.
We're going to have another hot on another day that's only about that. That is garbage. That is ridiculous, right? These people are national heroes. They're making us look good on a national stage, and we got to make them pay taxes. No, screw that. That's
Anything
stupid.
to declare? No, we all know you won.
We all know you won.
All right,
all
yeah,
right, Michael.
gotta declare a few
Give me
medals.
them 8 gold medals. Give me them 8 gold medals.
Stamp.
Guys, this should, the United States has weight here. We have weight to throw around. We can affect change. Now, I'd be really shocked if NBC actually made it.
Yeah, they're not going to.
NBC is in China's pocket. Everybody knows that most news agencies are in China's pocket. That's not an issue here. So I don't see that happening.
Well, it's also their business. Like, you're going to ask us to not do business? You kidding me? That's a way to make money.
But as far as the United States and their funding of the International Olympic Committee, we have weight to throw around. And you know what? We should. It is time to get over this nonsense about countries not about specifically the United States.
Well, we can't weigh in. It's like bull crap. We weigh in about
weighing in on stupid stuff like this.
We weigh in about everything. We're freaking arrogant Americans. We weigh in about everything.
Not only this, there are actual human rights violations that are that are happening currently in China, and we're doing nothing about it
because of their religion. It's specifically because of their religion.
Yeah, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna piss and moan about all these supposed human rights violations that are happening in our soil. And I'm not saying that those aren't entirely happening. Most of them aren't, but that's not necessarily what I'm saying at this point. But there are actual, confirmable people being put in work camps because of their religion in China right now, and all of a sudden the United States is not going to weigh in? Are you kidding me? That's absolutely ridiculous. And Texans, we need to be the ones leading the charge in the United States.
It's basically like those people who said, like, well, you're not compassionate about homeless people. It's like, well, you're looking away from this too. Like, don't pretend like you're whistling past the grave. You're like, I don't see it.
The United States, and it was, well, what if they cancel the Olympics? Fine, cancel the Olympics.
I'm not going to miss
it. The
it.
IOC is not going to cancel the Olympics. All right, the IOC makes their money once every 4 years by hosting the Olympics. They will reschedule. Weren't we supposed to have it in Tokyo? Why don't we just move it back to Tokyo?
Well, no, they are. That's the Summer Olympics.
Oh, the Summer Olympics.
Oh, yes, that is happening. That's happening soon. But that's why it's literally going to happen this year, and then about 6 months later, we're going to have China's, because it was supposed to happen, but obviously there's some kind of big thing that happened in 2020.
Some big thing.
I don't recall what it was.
Yeah, and we're certainly not going to host it in Tokyo, right? The densest city in the world, right? In the middle of a COVID pandemic. But guys, the IOC is not going to cancel the Olympics. The United States should throw its weight around on things like this. We should have the gall. We should have the gouillons to actually move on the world stage when things like this happen, when we deem it necessary.
Right.
But we don't. We just say, oh, well, that's their business. It's not.
And this is the first time that I'm actually with Pelosi. So quote me, I guess. If we have to do something, I think the diplomatic boycott is actually maybe the greatest option, because I'm with her on these athletes. They're caught in the middle of this. They have no stake one way or the other, and they just want to compete for their country. And they've trained all this time, and they've earned it. So I get letting them still compete, but from the diplomatic side, if we could avoid going over there, which won't be hard because Biden doesn't go anywhere. So if we can keep him here, we're fine.
Why are we going to these places?
Where are we?
What are we doing?
Wait.
Why is everybody giving me
president?
Egg foo young? Right? I don't like that. Come on.
Your
man.
Biden impression's terrible.
I'm trying, right? Point is, you're not going to... No, that's George Bush. Never mind.
Yeah.
Guys, this is... What China's doing right now is not acceptable. Yeah. And I understand. I mean, the thing is, Joe Biden with his whole like rising China attitude, that's again, a whole other topic for a whole other day. But
if we really want someone to blame, we're blaming Nixon.
At the very least, again, yeah.
He opened up China. I don't like you, Nixon.
We don't like Nixon for a lot of reasons, but that's a big one.
That's mine, but okay.
At least when it comes to things like this, guys, this is a no-brainer to me. I mean, if you want to talk trade, obviously China's got to kind of has us in a vice when it comes to trade, because we could suffer pretty severe economic penalties, which we should be willing to suffer. Frankly, we should be willing to bite that bullet for the sake of human rights and justice.
China.
But when it comes to things like this, guys, this is a no-brainer. United States, impose your will. Find that spine that we once had, and let's actually make a difference when it comes to this. Right? This isn't hard. This isn't difficult. Right? We need to find, and I know that there's human rights violations all over the place, but this is so egregious. This is
And
so
open.
unbelievably
It's
egregious.
so open.
And it's so out there, right? And I don't care. I don't care what the media is going to say. I don't care what the international community thinks of us. I don't care. We're Americans. We've never cared about that.
Yeah.
Now move, do something. Tell the IOC that if they don't make a change, that we're going to pull our funding. Tell them that we're going to start imposing some sort of sanctions. Let's do that. I mean,
Host their own Olympics.
seriously, where did our stones go on this kind of stuff? It's making me crazy. But we've got to make sure that we're standing up for somebody, right? Standing up for somebody in some capacity that isn't just some sort of made up injustice that we have here on the homeland.
Yeah.
There's got to be something we can do here, guys. And I think that starts with the U.S. And in the U.S., I'm going to say this, I think it starts with Texas.
Yeah.
I think if we throw our weight around here, that might cause the United States to throw their weight around. And I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but we as Texans, as a culture, we've got to move this. We've got to be a light in the darkness, right? We've got to be that shining bright light because as we all know, the stars at night are big and bright. We'll see you next week. I spoke last.